Well, hey guys, here we are in week 2, and it's Tuesday, and hopefully things in week 1 went okay for you. I just wanted to review a couple of things on the syllabus and the schedule, and also go over that info I had mentioned I would give you about the actual analyzing your image, since in part 1 you're doing field notes and analysis. So I'm going to talk about the actual visual analysis from the practical standpoint of when you do visual rhetorical analysis. What does it look like to do that kind of thing? Part of the analysis would be, the political, emotional, history, all those kinds of things. And what I'm going to show you is kind of a specific way to do sort of formal analysis of an image. But anyway, let's review week 1. You had your first update. I think we got on track in terms of posting all of those in the update forum. And when I talk about where to post things, it's not a major thing if you post something in the wrong place. It's not a big deal. I don't count off points or anything for that. It's more just to try to help us know where to find things. So anyway, and I'm like I said, posting things in the wrong place. My information that I give you doesn't always make that completely clear. I certainly realize that. So. And then also post by June 3rd what images you have chosen for part 1. So by now you should have chosen an image. Work on case study part 1. Now you were supposed to post that at the end of week 1. And I had that in the here in the discussion forum right here. Case study part 1, week 1. In this forum, you will post the work you've done so far on part 1 by end of Sunday. And this should show you, it was due June 3rd, so that should show up for you somewhere in Blackboard. But apparently, I didn't make that as clear, because so far the only person who has posted work on the part 1 is Ethan. So I put this to be worth 50 points because the idea was when you post what you've done so far, then I can give you some feedback. And then end of this week, week 2, so the due date for this case study part 1 to be finished is at the end of this week, end of week 2, and that's where you would post that. But if you don't post here, then that's going to be 50 points that you're going to miss being able to get. And like I said, it was my fault. Apparently I didn't make that clear. But you need to, as soon as you can, go ahead and post what you've done for what you've done on part 1, up to this point. It's not that it has to be finished or everything done, but you just need to post what you have done. If you haven't done a lot, that, part 1 has a lot to it. So I wouldn't wait. It's not the kind of thing, especially in a summer class, that you can, just sit down and cram all that into, one day of work. So anyway, but like I said, that's, 50 points there. So as soon as possible, you need to post something there. Okay, so the other thing I was going to do was show you, and give you some info on actually doing this formal visual analysis. And what I'm going to do, Marguerite Helmers has a really good book that I've used a lot. It's called The Elements of Visual Analysis. And I'm going to give you this, when I post this video, you will see, I'll give you this handout. And I really like it because it's very, it's easy to read. It's very to the point. It's a very good, easy, simple framework for you to actually take an image, sit down, and do an analysis of it. And so I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but I'm going to talk about some parts of this, and then I'm going to take an image and actually do a little bit of the analysis with it. Okay, so here's kind of step-by-step analysis. The part she says that you would go through. Record your initial impression, give some context, describe the image, any symbolic elements, anything that's absent. How does the viewer relate to the image, and what is the effect of that? And when we talk about the the methodology we're using, the new materialist rhetoric, that's what this really focuses on, the effect of the image on the viewer. Research the image, you've been doing that kind of stuff. And then your interpretation is where you're actually doing this analysis. So, hang on just a second. Maisie! Sorry, my dogs are barking. So anyway, and then if you go down, and I really like right here, elements of design, literal elements. I've used this in class, in several classes. I like using this. I think this is a really easy and very useful framework. And just go through these. If you go through this page, and then these principles of design, the arrangement, then you will actually have done a pretty good analysis of an image. Hang on just a second. Okay, those of you who have pets or children that make noise and you feel like that's a problem when you do a video, just use me as an example. You can see I have the same kind of issues to deal with my two dog children. So anyway, I'm going to use these literal elements and then the arrangement elements and talk about an image that I have related to the border. In that what I posted last week, the writing I had done, what does the border really look like? And I talked about Laredo. So this week I pulled up an image from Brownsville. And in Brownsville, while in Laredo there really wasn't very much in terms of actual physical fence. In Brownsville, there is a lot of fence. Pretty much the entire downtown area, and there's a lot because Brownsville's a pretty big city, has border fence. Now what's interesting is as you get towards the edges, then you find something like what you see here. So when you go to, let's see if I can get these lined up. Put the picture on this side and put this over here. Okay. Record your initial impression. Whenever I take pictures, whenever I'm researching a site, I always take pictures to show the viewer what the image looks like, when I first see it. And so here, when I first saw this, I think people have in their mind, I was talking about misconceptions. I think people have in their mind this idea of the fence is continuous. If you're going to keep people out, keep people from crossing, you're going to want to have the fence to be continuous. But you can see right here, this is one of the types of fence that you see a lot of along the border. And then it just stops. You can see this is the U.S. side. This really is still the U.S. side, but this is what we would refer to as the Mexico side of the fence. And then you see where the green stuff is tall there. It goes down towards where the river is. And the river, it meanders. It's got so many curves in it that the fence can't be right up along next to where the river is, so you get a lot of this. Now the other thing too is you can see the road here. You see the road here. This is what the Border Patrol uses, and so they go both sides. Now another thing that's going on in Brownsville, I'll just mention briefly, and it happens in other areas too. They're actually on this side of the fence, which is still in the U.S., you will find some areas where people actually, U.S. citizens actually have their homes or their ranches or their farms are actually on the Mexico side of the fence. So they have to go in and out. They have to cross an area like this, or in some areas where there's an actual fence, they have to open the fence and go through. So when I first saw this, I thought, I don't know, it really was just kind of a surprise to me. Okay, but if I take the literal elements and I use these to do an analysis. So first of all, color. You can see the fence typically has this dark brown color, and you can see the color has a heaviness to it. You can see here how the bars in the fence create lines in a grid, whereas you've got the natural colors here of the earth and the green of the trees. So, you could say this definitely represents, living in life. And some people would say here you've got this, non-natural material that you put that cuts in half the natural. That would be one way to talk about color. And then value. Value refers to lightness or darkness of color. I think the darkness of the fence is something to note. Dark. Dark we think of as strength, strong, hard. We want the fence to portray, kind of a don't cross, stay out. This is meant to stop people from crossing. Of course, we definitely have the lines created by the fence. The shape. You think about the shape of a fence. When I think about this, to me, the shape goes along with the idea of, prison situations where you have, these walls and square enclosure type of areas that are meant to keep people out. Okay, and then form, three-dimensional, volume, height, width. The fence here is definitely high, so it takes up quite a bit of the, when we look at this picture, it takes up quite a bit of the, more than half of the area shown there. Texture, the fence certainly has, like I said, that hard texture. In this space, the distance between objects, you've got the road here around the fence. So the road on both sides pretty much kind of, makes a, I don't know, I'm trying to think how to describe that. The fence actually borders, the roads here actually border the fence on both sides. and create, that. Okay, and then if I go to arrangement, perspective, distance, depth, and proportion. The fence doesn't have much depth to it horizontally, but vertically, there's a lot of depth there. Here the fence is pretty high. I mean, you'll find, and I'll keep showing you pictures. You find the height of the fence varies quite a bit, and I found areas where the height of the fence was shorter than I am, and and I'm 5'7", and I see those kinds of things, and I think, well, why even have that here? Let's see. Angle, the relationship, the viewer to the image, and here you can see, I took this picture this way because I wanted the viewer to see how the fence just stops. Framing. I guess I would say the roads, that's the word I was looking for. The roads really kind of frame the fence. Dominance, the fence definitely is dominant. I mean, even though you got, these big trees and all this greenery, the color and the weightiness, makes the fence, it gives it the dominance. It stands out. Harmonious position of elements. I wouldn't call this harmonious. I would say it really, and people who argue against the fence, especially, if they're thinking from an ecological standpoint, there's a lot written about the fence in terms of, the plants and the animals and the water flows, the natural elements, as well as the, animals, how are animals affected. So I would they would see that as being very unharmonious. Proportion, again, the fence is a big, it takes up a big part. Pattern, you've got the grids here. Definitely that pattern. And then you've got the leaf patterns and the road patterns. And, of course, the sky. I didn't mention the sky, but if I talk about color, you could talk about contrast here and maybe some symbolism, how this sharp point here cuts into the sky. Because we think of the sky as being open, and we think of blue as being calm, and then you have these dark, sharp, piercing colors and heaviness. So you could definitely talk about that in describing the image. Contrast, this definitely, these dark, dead, this is dead material, as opposed to the live, living green, the living blue in the clouds, and even the brown of the roads. I mean, this is dirt, and that represents, natural elements. And then grids. And you can talk about grids too, like if you divide the picture into 4, like if you put a line down the middle and a line across. This right here is in the very middle, so that's the dominant part of the grid in this picture. So anyway, that was just kind of a quick run through, and that would be good enough for whatever you do for your analysis. But look at this entire section I've given you from Helmers, because it really, really will give you some, ways to think about and organize and put together, what you want to do with that part. I'm going to give you this too. You don't have to use this. This is when I do my research. This is a framework that I created. When I do my research, I look at the physical sites. I'm looking at memorial spaces, and I look at the physical sites. So, I look at the fence as a memorial space. How have people been affected? What are the uh, memorials related to, people who have tried to cross, and uh, what does this represent related to that. But I also look at uh, the websites, any kind of online information related to a site that I visit. So when I put together this framework, it's not meant just for the physical sites and images of the physical sites, but I also use this when I analyze websites. But anyway, this is much more detailed. If you want to use this one, you can. I mean, you can even, when I use this one, I put my notes out here. You can see the blanks. So you could use this one if you want to. When you put it in your report, though, you would want to go ahead and reference me as the source for that, since this is a framework I created. But this one is much more detailed, so I'll put that one in there, and if you want to use that one, you are more than welcome to do that. So anyway, there's some stuff about how to do the analysis. And I'm a little bit behind on, what you guys have put in the updates form. Maybe some of your work on part 1 is in the updates forum. Maybe you put it there. That would be good. That would be fine. But anyway, I'm hoping to get caught up on that in the next day or two. But if you have specific questions between now and then. The other thing, and I'll post this too, on Thursday we'll actually try to do our meeting where we're going to meet synchronously. And I decided we'd do that at noon because somebody mentioned, those of you who work, usually lunch hours noon to 1, and I should have thought of that. I thought, oh, well, duh, that makes sense. So we'll try to do the synchronous meeting from noon to 1, but then I will still be in I'll still be in my WebEx room from 1 to 2. So hopefully as many of you as can will, come into the room during that time. And that will be fun for you guys. You'll get to see each other and talk to each other a little bit too. And then what I'm going to try to do is for next week, I've got one person that I'm pretty sure can maybe come in there and we can do kind of an informal interview with that person anyway. All right, so I'm going to cut that short. Hopefully this one's not too long, and we'll keep working. You guys are doing a good job, so I appreciate all the hard work.